I tend to show expertise and trustworthiness. So expertise and trust. EEAT is becoming more and more important every day that goes by. And get to know your user. Hello, I am Valentina Stragliotto, and this is SEO in 2026.
Valentina, what's your number one SEO tip for 2026?
Is to focus on EEAT and on high quality content and use really the traditional SEO as we always had.
Okay, focus on EEAT and high quality content. So EEAT, in your opinion, is that just as relevant for newer search engines, AI search engines, as more traditional search engines like the conventional Google?
I think we have been talking a lot about GEO and as opposed to SEO. And I really think after reading a few studies about it, I think that really what we used to use, especially lately with SEO, is now really applicable also for GEO and for the optimization for the sort of LLM systems as well, which is a bit of an unpopular opinion.
Well, not necessarily. So what makes you think that? Have you done some tests, and have you seen that if you focus on that within your content, then you're likely to get ranked in your search engines as well?
Yes. So really what I've been looking at is what sort of actions we have to do to obviously optimize for LLM systems. And obviously there is a big focus on domain authority and on your branding, which is something that has always been suggested, but also there have been quite a few studies sort of showing that there are particular actions which are really related to EAT and showing sort of trustworthiness and expertise on your content as opposed to other things that we used to use, such as keywords focused. What we used to have now with SEO before the whole sort of geo came out into the word, let's say, what we used to be focusing on was EAT because we wanted search engine to rank our content, and within the ranking factors, there was that we had to write for the users and to show expertise. And this is something that really we have to do for GEO. So we have to add statistics, we have to show expertise, we have to cite sources, and we have to make the content fluent because the new way of searching is with a full question in comparison than with a query keyword. And obviously there is a whole element of structured data, which is also very important because we want the sort of bots to be reading our content more and more easily. So obviously that's also a very important element, which again became very important in the last few years, also because of feature snippets and sort of all the structured content that was appearing on search engine, which is why I would say we go on a very similar trend there, but just calling it in a different way.
Okay, but within experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust, are there specific aspects or metrics that you try to incorporate in your content to ensure that these are understood by search engines?
I want to definitely say trust and expertise because we want to show, for instance, there are various studies that show that by including more and more statistics with statistics or anyway trustworthy content within our sort of copy, it would sort of push AI models to then be showing our content. And then obviously there is the trust element where when a domain shows more trust and has a higher domain authority, then it is more likely to be picked up from the models than it would be if it had a lower domain authority.
And another aspect of your tip is understanding your users' behavior throughout the funnel. So how do you apply EAT, or do you apply EAT to different parts of the funnel?
I think there it depends on there is definitely a dependency on the user and what your industry is and what you're sort of dealing with. EEAT, I think it's important in sort of any part of the funnel because from right now, especially informational content is much less searched for on search engine as much as it is on AI models. And especially there, it's very important to be applying that EEAT into the information that you provide to the users. And you need to show your expertise and you need to show that the user and the models can trust you in order for the for that content to be obviously be shown on the AI models. And then obviously when then you go from information, and therefore we are talking about sort of top of the funnel awareness, and then you start going down, even when then later you have all the commercial part and you have the conversion part. So when your actual product gets shown or your category pages get shown, then there is that part of sort of structured data, which is a little bit more important to be shown as well. But obviously as well, that trustworthiness is also important, because sort of products that are going to be shown, or the sort of like more conversion driven pages that will be shown, are going to be fundamentally based on trust as well.
And what about how the user journey has changed? Do you find that users are spending more time off your site? Do you find that they're actually making purchase decisions off your site? And if so, are you able to articulate any common changes in user behavior and where they spend their time now?
I think that there is a bigger topic to go on, as in the user behavior has changed, also have been shared into different platforms. There are many, many users that now start the research in social media, for instance, and then they move to search engine, or they start from AI models and then they move to search engine when they are more sure about what they want to buy. I think we are losing a little bit of a sort of share on the search engine onto the first steps of the user journey. So when they're starting the research phase, when they are starting to look for information, I think that informational side is now more onto either social media or the AI models, because people don't really have the patience to look for information on search engine anymore. They want the things sort of brought to them. So I think there are two elements in there, which are the first one, that I think the brands in general should be showing to the user before the user shows to them, if that makes sense, on the whole part of social media side. But I also think that we should really, really work as a brand on the brand authority and on the sort of trustworthiness of the site, so that we can, again, appear to the user before they come look for us. So when they go and search on AI models for whatever information, we want to be the ones appearing in there, which is a very similar concept as it was on search engine until a few years ago. But this time is more based on the domain authority and on the sort of fluency and trustworthiness of our content to be shown on the AI models. And obviously that there is also the structure of the content, the actual content, to be taken into consideration, as we have to structure it more so that it is clear and it talks directly and it explains the sort of information straight away, rather than sort of basing it more into the keywords. It's more about the context and the fluency and the sort of giving the answer straight away. But again, that's something that we started to do personally for feature snippets, because we wanted our content to be there and to be read from the bots straight away, and that, so that it was clear.
Okay, so you say that a lot of this discovery, this research phase of the user journey can be done on social media nowadays. Is that an SEO's job to manage the content publishing on social media, do you think?
I think it became also an SEO job. I think cross-channel is becoming more and more important. And I think that SEOs now have to be expert also on social media for this exact reason. Social media are starting to be ranked on search engine. And because of that, it automatically becomes also our job to look at the social media strategy. Doesn't mean that we have to make the social media strategy, but I think that we should collaborate with the social media team, if there is any, to optimize the content on social media, as well as we optimize the content on the site, as they can be pushed between each other. So you can push social media on your site, and you can push your site through social media, and you can help increasing the traffic onto your site by pushing social media the right way. Because sometimes for some queries, for instance, when you start going down the funnel, when you're on top of the funnel, there are actually social media being ranked, not really websites anymore. So that makes us actually almost in something that we have to do to know social media and understand how it works and how to optimize it and how to synchronize it as well with our website.
And synchronize it with our data, of course, as well. And all this is a bit of a nightmare for attribution. So do you attempt to attribute the value of someone interacting on social media, consuming content on social media, consuming content on an AI search engine, and the impact that that might have on a future search and potentially purchase after that?
I think it's very, very hard. As in, I think data analysis is becoming harder and harder as the days and the years go by. Obviously, attribution, especially because social media is not that easy to track, as well as really SEO sometimes isn't, because a lot of times people see your site and then they get off. Maybe they see it through a sponsored ad, and then you don't know exactly, have they gone off and then come into SEO? Have they discovered the organic side and then entering an ad because they already knew the brand? I think that there is a whole topic there again to be talked about. Attribution is very, very hard. I think there are ways to understand where the user comes from. Obviously, with GA4, you can sort of attribute the traffic to either the referral side, and on the referral, you have AI models you have social media, and then obviously it's up to the marketer as well, being able to properly track as well the social media content and understand the metrics so that to kind of track if it is working, if it is converting, if it is sending people to your site. But I think there is always going to be a question mark there, sort of like black point where we don't exactly know where the users went to and from and where it started the journey to with the site and the conversion. It can be minimized. We can minimize the error, that's for sure.
And a lot of SEOs talk about the value of building a brand nowadays, and the positive impact perhaps on click-through rates that recalling a brand and what that brand does can have. But how do we incorporate brand into content that's perhaps consumed elsewhere, again, maybe social media and AI search engines, or perhaps even on our own website? Do we attempt to actually tell people about our brand a little bit within the content, or do we associate the type of content that we publish with our brand and we eventually get some kind of recollection of association between our content and our brand?
I think the association is very important, but in general, I think that one of the ways to actually build our brand nowadays is to actually show up for the user. So to understand the need of a user and publish content that actually fulfills the needs and the queries of the user. When you start sort of answering these questions even before they get asked, then that's when the brand starts to be recognized as well. The build up of the brand comes off the website, but it comes off social media mostly. And when you start building it, it's also from a bunch of referral elements that you have around it. Once people start to get to know the brand for the quality of your content, for the quality of your information, for the quality of what you're being given to the user, and for the innovation as well that you bring to the user, that's when the brand starts being successful, in my opinion. So often it's also about innovation and taking that, whatever you are selling or showing or whatever, from a different perspective, a little bit more original, and understanding that element that maybe other people are not tapping on.
And when you say showing up for the user, does that mean interacting on social media and answering questions as soon as people ask them?
Not necessarily. I think their user research is becoming more and more important, because there is so much competition and there are so many elements when the users can find the information and not even look at where they are reading the information from. I think is user research and understanding in advance. So looking at social media and understanding what question they're asking. But then eventually, once you understand the trend of the user and the way that they behave and what they ask, that's when you don't only have to answer a question, but you have to provide the questions before they ask them, which is very, very hard, but possible by studying the users.
That's another topic in itself, really, how to actually read the minds of your potential customers and deliver what they're looking for before they even know that they want it.
Yes, exactly.
Valentina, what's the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
I think to show expertise and trustworthiness. So expertise and trust. EEAT is becoming more and more important every day that goes by. And get to know your user.
Valentina Stragliotto is an SEO expert and digital marketing strategist, and you can find her over on LinkedIn. Valentina, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2026.
Thank you very much.
I've been your host, David Bain.
Get your copy of SEO in 2026, the book, over at SEOin2026.com.